I'm Rowan, so I'm named after a tree. Long before I met Daisy, I asked Mum why they didn't give me a pretty flower name like Heather or Rose. Mum said girls waste too much time and energy trying to be pretty when, really, they need to be tough. So she gave me a name that's strong. But 18 months ago, she must have thought her plan had gone badly wrong. My branches were blowing around like ribbons and my roots weren't holding. I might as well have been Lala or Lace. My mother, Julie May Fig, has no time for wimps. She's like an old Egyptian pyramid. She can't be shifted, and getting round her is hot and tiring. When I was little, if I argued about bedtime or homework, she'd say, "Jules rules," with a forefinger aimed right at me. I wasn't fooled by the big grin. These were fights, and she aimed to win. By 11, I called her seriously embarrassing. Other girls had mums who were soft and sympathetic, but mine just made jokes and winked. I'd seen photos of her wearing a dress, lipstick and heels, but after Dad left, she said she just couldn't be arsed with all that malarkey. Even when she gigs, her look is more Joe Brand than Beyoncé. My mum has no problem with being a big woman. In fact, she calls herself a TARDIS, bigger on the inside, and that includes brains. Not that you need A-levels in physics and chemistry to work a fast food van. Is that like a midlife crisis, I asked her the first time I saw it. On wheels? Can't afford a Ferrari, she said. Or a toy boy. It was part of the switch from wife to single mum, as if all it took was a click. Just highlight and delete. I thought that van was rusty old junk. It looked as if one kick would make it clatter into bits like Lego. But she transformed it, just like she transformed herself. Reckless, it says on the side, although a suggested death sentence. You're meant to know physics, I told her. Doesn't Jumbo Jules Savoy have the wrong kind of atoms, the kind that explode in your guts? Only in Zach's, she said. I laughed. Business has never exactly boomed, but she's still there, near the recycling centre known as the Dump, in her apron and cap. You can hear her before you smell her, because she plays Radio 2 above the hiss and sizzle, sings along and calls it rehearsing. My brother Zach would live on chips if she'd let him. But he spends a lot of time chasing a football, so he's not as fat as he deserves to be. Like Mum, he's got a big voice and a laugh that makes you reach for the volume control. And for years he's been calling me Boat, sometimes with Rowan in front, as if it's still clever, even though no one else thinks it's funny. Zach's never seemed bothered about having a now-and-then kind of dad who lives in another country. And the first time Mum told him about having to visit by Eurostar, he just said, "Cool." I used to look at Zach as if he was one of those larvae you drag up in a net when you're pond dipping. Another life form. That's funny when you think what I became. But even though it didn't look possible 18 months ago, I've done the same as Mum in a totally different way. I'm Rowan Fig remodelled, and I'm getting used to me. When last year began, life meant school, shopping and coffee shops, and les vacances in France with Dad and Mireille. I'd given up most of the after-school clubs I liked as a kid and dropped clarinet because Dee said it pulled my mouth out of shape. I'd fallen out of love with hockey because my lovely hair drooped in wind and rain and clung to my scalp like seaweed. That March, my well-acted version for Mum was a sob story that hadn't been picked for the team, when really I'd been dropped because I didn't turn up to practice. Luckily, she didn't ask for an appointment with the PE department to demand justice, but I had a long lecture anyway about self-belief and commitment. "Rowan," she said as my fingers tapped the keyboard, "you know how I feel about being fubbed?" "Should have got used to it by now," I said, eyes down. She let that go because she thought I'd taken a knock, but I was fine. I had friends like Dee and Yasmin. I wasn't short of boy attention, and someone sent me a Valentine's card with a question mark. I hoped that it was Aaron Detroit, because I sent one to him. I only dropped it in a postbox after scanning the street like a cop on covert ops and muttering "OMG" to myself the whole way home. Now that really is embarrassing. I think I only fell for his name and his hairstyle. According to Yasmin, he showed all the signs of fancying me, but he never said much more than, "All right," when we found ourselves in the same stretch of corridor. "Yeah," I'd say, as if I didn't care about him or anything. I was just drifting.